So I'm here with Michael Lindeboom, a software developer here at RunSignup. Now, when and why did you start at RunSignup?
I guess I started a year after the pandemic started. But if we want to go back even farther, I'm married to one of the original employees of RunSignup. So I kind of was able to see RunSignup from the earliest days.
You were at our first symposium, right?
Yeah. I've been to most of the symposiums that developers attended, even though I wasn't officially an employee at that time. But yeah, so RunSignup actually started in I guess Bob's dining room, and since I'm married to Sue, who does the company finances, I got the inside scoop on most of RunSignup's development over the years. I was a developer in the defense industry first for 15 years of my career. And then I was a contractor for pharmaceutical companies for about 6 years, working for a couple of different firms. And then I finally actually just hooked up with a pharmaceutical company called Bristol Myers Squibb. And in all of those capacities, I was always hands-on developer / manager or architect or tech lead. So something technical, but not purely manager. I always kind of, as soon as stuff started looking like management, I said, yeah, I want to stay technical. So during the pandemic, Bristol Myers Squibb, which was the company I was working for, actually had a layoff. We had a merge, and my job became redundant. And then the pandemic hit. So I know RunSignup actually had some trials and tribulations, because I had started talking to Bob at that point, and then everything got put on hold. I went and found another job for a 6-month period of time, and then when the pressure sort of started to ease on RunSignup from the pandemic, we started talking again. And at that point, I came on board, and I think I'm working on my 4th year.
Now, how does development at RunSignup kind of compare to development you've done at past companies?
So if you are doing any work for the pharmaceutical company or a defense contractor, how you do development is definitely, first of all, it's very waterfall, meaning you put your design down on paper, you get that approved, you start coding, and if there are changes, you have to go back to the start, and it's regulated and very heavily design, code, test, and then go back to design. Whereas RunSignup is, first of all, it's an existing product, and so you're not inventing stuff out of whole cloth. You're from my perspective, I'm maintaining existing code or adding functionality to existing code. I won't say it's rapid development purely, but it sort of is more like that. What's really different about RunSignup is that the review process for how your code actually gets into production is probably a more stringent process than anything I've been involved with previously. And I've been involved in a lot.
So what projects have you worked on in the past 6 months here?
So essentially, the focus of my job is mostly on the financial stuff. So it's not stuff that somebody registering for a race or buying a ticket normally sees. Typically, it is more the dashboards for the race director or for the person putting on the ticketed event. So I do a lot of reports and basically financial related functionality. So the stuff that I've been working on in the past 6 months, just to go a little bit farther back, is we used to use Allianz for insurance, and more recently we switched over to another company called Protect. And so I added the ability to do Protect insurance to the race purchase path.
So you added that pop-up to the page.
Right, and all the back end plumbing. That pop-up is actually their product. They have a widget which they say, here, use this, and they let you customize it. So our UX guys were actually able to reconfigure it so that it kind of fits with our look and feel. And then all the back end plumbing to talk to the insurance company's computers and send over the financial information, who gets paid and who's insured and all of that stuff. So that was the big project last year, and it kind of ran into the summer. with the different reports and support that I had to put in. More recently, actually just went live very recently, was the invoicing. We had invoicing for a number of different areas for RunSignup, and we needed it for ticketed events. Plus, we kind of needed a UI redo for the race, because that's all stuff that was done maybe 6-7 years ago. So it looked it.
I know before you would go to the page and it was just 3 lines of text and each one was a link.
It was fairly old code. And so the first thing we did was make it so that you could go ahead and create an invoice. We use this new pop-up. We aren't trying to combine everything onto one page like in the past. So that just went live recently for ticketed events and the redo for races. Last winter, I worked on, every year we have a tax season, and it starts just after Halloween and kind of ends at the end of December and into January. This is when all the accounting information is collected, and we tell everybody how much their races or ticketed events have made in the past year. And the federal government right now says if you make $20,000 on race or races during the year, we send you a 1099. So this year kind of focused on automating as much as possible. And my main client for the tax 1099 stuff is my wife, so it's got to be good. Otherwise, I get immediate feedback. So what I'm working on now, kind of going back into the insurance realm, we wanted to add insurance to ticketed events. We don't have the Protect banner on the checkout for tickets, and we'd like to add that. So there's a lot of development in trying to figure out what to insure, what we can insure, what we can't insure. We actually had a couple of meetings about that yesterday. I believe we're supposed to have that up and running by the middle of the year, because I think there's somebody who really wants to have that.
And is that figured out by Protect, like what Protect wants to insure, what they can't
Yeah, we had to
insure?
figure out what. It turns out they can insure pretty much everything. The only things that are kind of off limits is donations and sponsorships. Those get a little complicated legally. But if you buy something in the store, or I'm learning more about tickets as I go, and it seems like tickets are a regular ticket, like we have, buy a ticket, but we also have things in the store that are also tickets. And so being able to insure anything in the store kind of makes it a lot easier to conceptualize than, insure this, but don't insure that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Now, earlier I was talking to you and you were telling me about the differences between web development and web design, and how you work together with a designer to put together things on the website. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So in this most recent thing that went live, the invoicing, there were screens that needed a lot of refreshing, because most of the design was I think even before we had a UX department.
And UX is user
experience or user interface. Yeah. And so I worked closely with, in this case, Jeff Kiesel. So basically it was a collaborative effort. I showed him the screens as they existed, and he said, well, you should really kind of do the following, right? And he gave a couple of examples of what he was looking for. And I was able to at least just get it closer to that point. But at some point, basically, I would check in the code and basically say, have a look at this, Jeff, and make whatever changes you need to make. And, so I think the screens really benefited from that. They have a real polished look and feel now, mostly due to Jeff Kiesel's efforts. They look like other things in the product. So this is more standard for invoicing.
So it starts with Jeff kind of making an image of what he wants to see on that page, and then you kind of code in stuff to make it look like the image that he sent you.
Yeah.
And then it goes back and forth.
Basically, yes. The way that kind of works, this collaborative effort, is Jeff's strengths are obviously in the how things look and how they should work, how it plays, and whether it's intuitive or not. My strengths are getting the back end plumbing working. Make sure that the stuff you enter in the front end gets to the database and gets stored properly. And then once I had that working, I handed it off to Jeff. So that's an iterative process, and it goes back and forth. And I think it resulted in something that we can be proud of.
Now, what do you think the greatest strength is of the development team?
Well, even though the team is relatively young, there's a real depth of experience, and you can just tell that it's a talented group of people. One of the things that I find most striking about our team is that there aren't any everybody there aren't any egos, right? I mean, obviously everybody has an ego, but the ego thing doesn't get in the way of how we collaborate. Like, I'm able to share stuff with other developers, or other developers can ask me questions, or there's the collaboration and the ego is checked at the door, and everybody contributes.
Now, you mentioned that you didn't watch any of the other dev talks before this, right?
That's true.
Yeah. You said you didn't want to see anything that I had done, right? No, but that was the most popular answer. Everyone says no egos from the dev team.
Yeah.
Now, do you have any fun stories that you want to share about working here at RunSignup?
Sure. Well, Sue and I, about 18 months ago, became grandparents. We had a granddaughter. And just recently, some other folks in the office have also, within the last week, we had two more people become grandparents. So it's like suddenly there's an explosion of grandparents. So
Those are fun times.
yeah, fun times.
Well, thank you, Michael.
Great.